This is All About Home Construction, and here's your hosts, Terry Cannell-Beck and Randy Blake.
That's right. Good morning. Happy Saturday. And Randy Blake in the Rock and Roll Kitchen. Good morning, Randy.
Morning, Terry. I was trying to talk to you earlier.
I know, and you called, and I couldn't call back, and it's been a rough...
That's all right. Well, I was trying to use my earbuds, and it wouldn't allow me to speak.
Well, let's see. There you go. Anyway, I can hear you now. You're on, and it's a Saturday morning, and you're at the VFW cooking at the Rock and Roll Kitchen, baby.
Yes, I am, and I'm running a little behind here, and I was trying to use my earbuds because I don't know why I could hear you plain as day, but I couldn't talk back to them.
No worries, man. No worries. But what's going on at the VFW this morning? Tell everybody.
We're just cooking food. The taters are getting ready to come out here in a minute. Pancakes.
Sweet.
Now, Dave makes one of the ugliest dishes I've ever seen, but it's a French toast casserole.
Yeah?
Oh, my God, it's good.
All right. So, form over beauty. So,
correct.
All right. Sweet. Well, so we got a little casserole going for us this morning. All the other, I'm assuming, the bacon, the eggs, and the whole 9 yards.
This will be the first breakfast that we've ever done that I can wander and talk at the same time.
Sweet. Well, good, man. That's good stuff. So all of our listeners should get on over there at the Rock and Roll Kitchen. Breakfast is live now at the VFW here in Boone. Get over there and help them out. It's good. It's a little rainy outside, but it's not a bad morning to get out and get over there. Get some breakfast.
Well, I have to apologize for everybody that I didn't comment on steak night. We had an excellent steak night, and it went very well. No, I didn't break a record, but what I did break a record on was steak sales the next 2 days.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Because I sell all my meat to the membership. We vacuum pack it and freeze it, and we sell it that way. So
that's cool, dude. That's awesome. So good stuff.
Last month, I want to thank everybody for coming out for breakfast because that was the biggest breakfast we ever had.
Isn't that awesome? Well, maybe today we'll break the new record.
And for $12, you can't say that you don't get your fill because you can eat all you can eat.
Yep. Hey, you know what? That's what I'm saying. It costs you $12, honestly, if you go to a fast food anymore and get you a breakfast.
Well, you go spend a ham biscuit and hash brown and drinks $9.
Right. And you don't fill up. So
now I'm really mad. What? They're playing country goat roast music in my kitchen.
That's funny. Well, good stuff, man.
Dave, well, you know what we were listening to?
What's that?
The top 40 in 1973 this morning.
Yep.
And but I had to come out on the deck because I got to cook, so that's all right. They can listen to what they want to. Which, one thing I don't advertise a lot of, and I should advertise, is every Saturday night Dave does karaoke, and that's been going real good.
Good. I like a good karaoke. I need to make it over there one day. Get out there and do a little singing.
Well, I hope you sing better than I do because it's about like stepping on a cat's tail.
Well, I was going to say it's not hard to sing better than Randy does, apparently, from what I've heard.
Randy don't sing.
Love it. So, well, cool. Well, you got a dinner this month, though, right? What's the dinner this month?
This month we're going to do our flounder dinner.
Sweet.
We'll have, flounder, French fries. I might be adding some baked potato to it, which I probably will. I need to get a case of taters anyhow. And corn, slaw for $14.
Sweet. And when is that again?
Third Saturday. See, our meals are always on the third Saturday.
That's right. That's right, third Saturday. So, so go by, make some plans on that. But again, breakfast this morning at the VFW. So.
And you know what? I wasn't here because I was out of town, last week. Sorry about that, guys. But they had the biggest Memorial Day that they've ever had since I've been a member, with people showing up. And when we do stuff like that, it's a potluck.
Yep.
And they said it went over excellent.
That's cool. Well, cool. Well, good stuff. Well,
if most people, I know a lot of people come in, they see the kitchen, and they look at it to see how we do this. We just do it. But then I take them outside to the deck. That's where a lot of it goes, is in the deck.
Yep.
Especially steak night.
Well,
and I've sold out of my 32-ounce ribeye. So.
That's awesome. Well, good stuff. Well, I don't want to make this about our show today because I know we've got the topic picked out. But I was going to ask you. So I've been reading. I read something about it, and I think we've mentioned this before. But it's the fiberglass rebar. Glass fiber reinforced polymer rebar. I was reading about that. Have you worked with that?
North Carolina will allow you to use that now in certain applications.
That was going to be my question. Can you use that?
Yeah, they're actually using it in footers, and because under the code now with the footer, they've got a tool to test it, and if the tube or the tester does not penetrate the ground, then you can use. You're not required to have rebar in it.
Right.
Well, golly, I'm from that generation where we used to have to put water lines 3 foot in the ground to keep them from freezing.
Yep.
And that was my question to them do you think we're ever going to get cold again? And can't nobody answer that question.
Right. Well, the cool thing about this is it's supposed to be easier to work with. It's lighter weight, it's easier to cut, things like that. But it's the tensile strength depends on the brand, but as much as or more than rebar.
It does, but it flexes.
Yep.
Rebar don't flex much.
Right. Well,
steel. Well, see, we have to use a grade 60. A grade 40 you could bend pretty easy.
Right.
Concrete does not support itself. Okay, without steel in it.
Yep. So, well, I don't know. I just saw that and I was like, "That's cool." I know we've talked about it. I don't know. Maybe one day you can give me more ins and outs on the fiberglass rebar.
Yeah, because I was actually looking at a job the other day to try to, save some money and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But in my application, I couldn't use it.
Gotcha. Well, I just was looking at the ease of putting it in. It's a lot lighter. I mean,
I can't remember the price, but it is less than steel.
Well, I was curious how it worked out because my thing is rebar is not the easiest to work with. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's like if you've ever cut it, it's not impossible to cut, but it's not as easy as like cutting fiberglass would be.
No, it's not. But see, it used to be grade 40. You could take it and put it on the car bumper and put a 90-degree angle in it.
Yep.
That's a little harder with grade 60.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. So, well, cool. All right. Well, good stuff. All right, so let's we'll tease our topic a little bit before we take our break. And we always like our listeners, and we have a listener that sent us an email a while back. And it's just been one of those crazy couple of weeks with episodes. And but Elizabeth and Andrew was listening to us and sent us this question, Randy, on the email. And I got their sticker. I haven't mailed it out. I've been a little lazy, but I'll get it to them. But no, I know. But Elizabeth and Andrew sent an email, and they were wondering, Randy, a little bit about barndominiums and sort of the pros and the cons here in Boone. And so I got to thinking, it'd be a fun little show today. And but I'm curious, how does Randy Blake define a barndominium?
Well, I can answer that after break. How would that be?
All right. Well, let's do that. Let's take our first break, and we'll come right back and we'll know about barndominiums right after this. Thanks for listening. The Boone VFW Post 7031 is looking at making improvements to their Veterans Memorial Wall, and you can help. Here's Chuck.
We could do engraved bricks to cover the memorial. It's in honor of the veterans who have served and some that have given their all for our country. And that's the one thing that we feel as the VFW that we can do to honor those who have come before and those who are even present today.
But Chuck, what do we have to do to participate?
You don't have to be a war veteran in order to be a part of this memorial. It's just that you served.
What is the cost?
That fee is only $50, but it's a lifetime investment.
If you would like to help participate by honoring a family member, a friend, or a loved one, you can contact the Boone VFW Post 7031 at 828-264-9570. They are on VFW Drive just off of State Farm Road here in Boone. Thank you for all that I've served. That's right, all about home construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there and Randy Blake in the Rock and Roll Kitchen at the VFW. So get on over there and get a breakfast going and, see if you can sell him out a breakfast this morning, right, Randy?
Yep. Matter of fact, if you come in, Dave's in the late 50s era music today of rock and roll.
Sweet. I could get down with some of that.
Started off with the top 40 in 1973.
All right. Nice. Good stuff. 1973. I don't know. I like some 70s, but you kind of got me excited about a little late 50s, you know?
Oh, I like stuff like that.
A little doo-wop.
Oh.
All right. Cool. All right, so again, we're speaking a little bit on this topic today from Elizabeth and Andrew had a question about barndominiums. And all right, so before the break, I asked Randy, define to me what you call a barndominium.
Well, we worked on one last year, and I really didn't like it because it was built out of 6x6s, okay? Mm-hmm. And they tried to accomplish a 2-story, but they used 16 foot on the gable walls, and 16 foot 6x6s wouldn't go up high enough, okay? So I prefer the steel barndominiums. They can design them. They're wind loaded, and you spend less time assembling. And to give you an idea, we did a warehouse that was 40 by 60 with a 6-foot foundation, mm-hmm. and we had 119,000 in it. All right, that's 2,400 square foot right there. But that's not fact. There was no plumbing or electric. There was electric in it, but it's not like a house, okay?
Right.
And but you can get a bigger structure for far less money.
So basically, when you're talking about barndominiums, I guess it's essentially you take a barn structure, a building barn, whatever you call it. You take a barn and you turn it into a house. If you build that same design from the ground up, though, do you still consider that a barndominium? In other words, if I have a new construction, so I guess there's two different things, I guess.
That's just terminology for a house, barndominium. You're building a commercial steel structure and making it into a house.
Right. Well, and that's what I've always been curious about because, you see this name pop around, but building a new structure in the shape of, or in the architect of a barn that's a house is different than taking an old barn itself and turning it into living space.
Correct. Now, that's totally different ball game right there, taking an old barn and making it into a house.
Yeah, because, that's fun, by the way, and I guess technically that falls under that, to some people, that barndominium title, if you will. But I guess maybe we'll save that part for another show, and you wanna focus more on the actual building of a new structure.
Let's talk about the new structure, because the way it is today, let's take an old barn you see on the side of the road with a rock foundation and stuff. You'd have to go through a nightmare with the inspectors to get it to pass to live in. Okay.
Because at that point you would have to go all the way back to the foundation, right? Like, in other words, you would have to bring the foundation up to code and the walls up to code, and that's before you do anything to the actual inside.
Correct. You would have to bring that barn. If that barn was built in the 60s, you would have to bring it up to 2018 code today. Okay. So I mean, you'd have to go all the way through with connection from the foundation to the connections to the seal log or plate to your walls to your rafters, the whole 9 yards. Okay?
Which, by the way, essentially would be building it over. You're
correct.
I mean,
right.
when you really think about it, right? You're going to be building it. I mean, you may be keeping the shell, that the outside look itself, but really every single thing from the ground up on the inside, and the walls themselves are probably going to be messed with.
Yep, and it's probably. I mean, if you're in love with it, you got the money, that's great. Okay, and that's the look you want. But you also got to deal with the inside. See how the old barn boards work? You could stand in a barn and look on the outside.
Right. Yep.
You got to make sure that there's nothing that can penetrate from the outside into the house.
Yep. So So what are you going to do about a vapor barrier? Plus insulation, right? I mean, to me, there's a lot. And let's face it, right? Like even a barn that's a cool functional barn inside is not going to be a very functional living space. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to turn a horse stall into a bedroom? I mean, you're going to have to redo the structure, I guess is my point.
And also another thing you're going to deal with is you got to deal with all that stuff was in that barn before. So you're going to have to clear the ground out, get it back to bare ground.
Clean, not smelly, you mean? Is that what you're hinting at here?
Say again?
Clean, not smelly kind of bare ground? Because, I mean, let's...
Well, you're probably not going to smell it if it's wild, old.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying that, like, I don't know what you keep in your barns, but most barns I've ever been in has had some kind of animals, and they're usually not potty trained. How's that?
Like that. You got to address that.
But okay, all right. So let's go back to these barndominiums. Potentially, they can be somewhat cost effective, right? Because
yes, you can do anything with a barndominium that you can do with a regular house. Okay. The only difference is, I mean, if you want to, you can hang wood siding on it,
right?
Hardy plank, but you have to. There's a whole different mindset on it. Because your equipment, either you have to screw it on, or have the equipment to shoot the siding on.
Right.
But if you look at the types of metal siding they have now, they have metal log siding. They have the regular ag panel that everybody sees on their roof. You can put standing seam on it, but it's a low maintenance home. Okay, you never have to paint the outside.
Right.
But it still has to come up the code. As far as the energy code, R19 in the walls, which that's not hard to do, 38 in the ceiling.
Sure.
That's not too hard to do either. But you have to insulate your slab because you're not coming off a block foundation. You're going to come off a total monolithic floor because that's what helps support it.
Right. Now, traditionally, I guess a barndominium is going to have high ceilings, open floor plans, things like that. Is that pretty much what you see?
Yeah. It used to be you could only get, the metal buildings only came in a height of 312 pitch.
Right.
Okay? But most metal buildings are 1 in 12 because of the type of sheeting that they use. So what you'd want to do is get your barndominium, if you're going to have an upstairs in it, get your walls 16 foot tall, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's actually very efficient. The homes are. Let's say you put your frame up, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You put a bubble wrap type of product, aluminum foil on both sides with the bubbles in it.
Right.
Screw that to your frame. Now that's your thermal barrier and your vapor barrier on the outside, okay?
Right.
So you can come in and put your R19 in the walls. And the R19 comes in rolls, and the rolls can be 50 foot long. and let's say your purlins are every 4 foot. That's how these buildings work, is the purlins instead of standard vertical studs like we're doing.
Right.
Things on horizontal.
Well, okay, so that's what I was going to go to. Now, would you consider, again, generic here, but like, would you consider that more like a balloon frame house versus like a platform, traditional, if you will, framed house?
Say again now?
Is the style of building itself, is that more like a balloon framed structure versus a platformed?
Right. Yes.
So that's what I was sort of thinking, and pros and cons, but part of me thinks it's a little cheaper because you're doing less. I don't want to say less building, but I mean you're using less lumber in the walls, right?
Right. Well, you're not. The only lumber you're going to use is when you go around the. Like if it's a big structure, we're going to put season on that first. Then you'll have to. They put Tony's on it.
Well, I mean, I know you're a fan of the metal, the steel buildings, but I mean, even a lot of people are using these like a post frame building too. So even a post frame building is going to use less materials than the traditional stick built platform framed house, for instance.
Yeah, you'd be easier. Now I don't know about LEED certification on the barndominiums, but I guess you could. Because what it is, LEED certification is the amount of ground that you disturb.
Right.
And the amount of product you have left over. Because when you do a house, they want you to have everything would fit in the back of a pickup truck. Okay? Sure. And when you've heard me talk about Will's house. That's how we actually designed it, was try to we weren't trying for LEED certification, but that's how we drew it, and that's how we wanted to build it.
Sure, it makes it because it makes it more efficient. But again, let's go back. Let's stick with this barn culture for just a minute here, right? You think a traditional barn here in the Appalachian Mountains, and those people were they didn't care about any kind of certificate, but their LEED certification was, hey, I don't want to have to get more materials than I need. And
right.
so
that's how a lot of the old houses are built.
Yeah, and so that makes sense that these barndominiums would follow that same suit, because you're a lot of stuff, like you said, 16-foot walls and things like that. Like, whether you get metal, whether you get the posts and beams, like I'm just thinking, like, a lot of posts, a lot of beams, come in that. Well, I mean, I know you got to put it in the ground, but they come in 16 feet. They come in, things like that. So it just makes, I like it. It makes sense to me that it's a fairly, I don't know what the word, efficient, I guess, when it comes to building.
Yeah. Well, I priced one out here a while back, and I want to thank the 30 by 40 frame. Now, it only had the openings in it. Didn't have the garage doors. Didn't have the doors. But the building itself, 30 by 40, was like $23,000 for the building itself. Now that's not the slab or anything.
Sure.
Okay. And that's the only. There's a learning curve in it when you go to the steel, because you don't have nails.
Sure.
You have to use screws to put your window in. But you still use your foam, your shims, and everything to support your building, okay? And it's similar to vinyl siding, because if you're going to use steel siding, you still use a J channel that goes around your windows and doors, and your siding goes in so it keeps the edges covered.
So you're saying if I have a foundation poured, slab, in other words, I've done the grading, I've done the foundation, I've done the slab, I can dry something in for less than $30,000?
Probably, let's say 35. How about that?
That's actually, when you think about it, like, you're not going to dry. I mean, even with the foundation and stuff, let's just say it costs double that. Like, you could get dried in for $50,000 to $70,000. That's pretty economical.
Well, no, that $23,000 including the side and the roof.
So you're more than dried in. I mean, that's So now you're talking about a finished product that's in the $200,000 to $300,000 versus the $4,000 to $5,000.
There used to be a steel house on 105 bypass, and where the Apple Cart building is now.
Yep.
You know where they park the buses under that big enclosure?
Yep.
That's where it's at. And that was totally built out of the same materials that they build barndominiums out of. And nobody knew that it was a steel house.
Sure. I don't know, man. You're kind of exciting me. I mean, to think that you could do this, because it's. I mean, I know once you start doing the interior, things they're as big as your eyes are, and in terms of what choices you make inside. But I mean, it sounds like you can get in a livable modern space in less than $300,000. And like large space too. We're not talking like cramped little bedroom.
No, you can have big bedrooms because your spans are a lot greater.
Right.
You know, if you do a regular house, let's say you do a house with 12-foot walls, cathedral ceiling, no livable upstairs, just a house like that, that is the cheapest form you can build of a barndominium.
Would you have enough headroom there to put like a little loft for? I'm just thinking, we're here in the mountains. We like, you want that like let's just say.
Make
a rental, a short-term rental.
Realtors wouldn't allow it as usable space. It'd have to be storage only.
Okay, that's what I was. Okay.
So if you go, let's say you go 16-foot walls, you go 8-foot ceilings in the bottom. You got your 2x10 frame, and you frame the inside out of wood. Okay. Mm-hmm. Or you can do it out of steel. You can do your steel studs if you can get them, but they got to be 20-gauge studs.
Right.
Not 26 that they sell for commercial building. And you can order the floor joists out of Winston-Salem.
Okay.
That would fit in there. They would be steel. And Dietrich was the number one floor joist manufacturer in the late 90s, early 2000s. They had a 14-inch floor joist that would free span 33 foot on 2-foot centers.
Wow.
Because I really love the steel houses. When in 2002, when houses was costing $125 a square foot to build, we actually bought the property, put the well in, put the septic tank in, did the grading, built the house, walked away for $92 a square foot, and the house is 3,300 square feet.
Dang, that's awesome! All right, man, you're exciting me a little bit here. You're exciting me because I like that possibility, and that I like a big open floor plan too, and to me that these two things work together. So let's take a break, and we'll come right back right after this. What do you think?
Yep.
Well, let's do it. We'll be right back right after these.
This June 14th and 15th, step back in time. Witness history come alive at Defending the Homeland, the Lee County Resolve, a Civil War reenactment in Pennington Gap, Virginia. Follow the legendary Wilderness Road as Confederate Home Guard stood firm against the Union forces. Experience the bravery and the resilience of those who defended their homeland. And the best part, it's a free event for spectators to come and experience the life in the Civil War. Don't miss this powerful portrayal of Lee County's pivotal Civil War story. Defending the Homeland, the Lee County Resolve, June 14th and 15th in Pennington Gap.
That's right, all about home construction here on WATA. And again, thanks to all of our listeners out there. Randy Blake at the Rock and Roll Kitchen over at the VFW here in Boone, getting that breakfast in, the monthly breakfast. Ooh, good bacon and eggs. I want some bacon and eggs. I'm in a mood for a nice jelly biscuit too, Randy. You got jelly biscuits today?
Yep. You want jelly or butter?
All right. Last time I was there, you had like you had some strawberry jelly. It was pretty good on a biscuit.
You know what? I don't have any strawberry jelly.
Oh no,
blackberry and grape, because people like you just pillage the strawberry jelly.
Fair, but I like blackberry now.
I know it. I know it's good.
I'm all about. I've been in a jelly mood this year. I told you we made some dandelion jelly this year. and some redbud jelly. So I'm all about jelly this year, and molasses for some reason. I'm in a molasses kick too. So
I ain't much on molasses. Oh, I do use molasses when I do salmon.
right, but I mean, on a biscuit, you just put it on a biscuit. Roll with it, bro.
Gives it a unique flavor that you wouldn't think it would, but it does.
Yeah. Honey glazed chicken. Now we got molasses glazed salmon. I love it. All right, talking a little bit about barndominiums here on the show today, and again, thanks to our listeners that sent us an email. Andrew and Elizabeth, thanks for sending this email out to us, and we really appreciate you guys listening to us. And shoot me another email if we didn't hit on the ideas that you wanted us to hit on. But when we talk about barndominiums, Randy, you've really excited me because of the cost, the price point. And now I know every price point, there's a lot of factors, including your preferences. What do you want it to look like? Things like that. And obviously the biggest thing is the square footage too. What would you say, when you think of a barndominium in the high country, are you talking closer to the 2,000 square feet house? You're talking like 1,500? What sort of is that, I guess, average?
It depends on how flat your lot is, okay? Because most barndominiums are a one footprint, okay?
Right.
Like your house, all right? So your house is dictated by your footprint. If you got a lot, let's say, a lot of seniors, they don't want a big house anymore.
Sure.
So they can get a house that's like, you can go all the way down to probably 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
And then you could go up to 100,000 square feet. See, the sky's the limit when it comes to steel.
Right.
Most people don't think about that with steel. You're limited on wood when it comes to steel. You can go a long ways.
Well, but being an open floor plan typically, I'm just thinking like you get a 30 by 60, right? Something in that neighborhood. And you're talking 1,800 square feet. You put a couple lofts in. You go a little bit taller. If you go 16, you can put a loft up there, and you could have a little bonus room or something, right? Like, you're in the 2,000 square foot living space.
I've never dealt with steel rafters over about a 312, but I think you could do it. And last night before I went to bed, I was thinking about calling Danny, one of my steel salesmen that I got, talk to him about it, because that's what they do is they design buildings.
Right.
And just to talk to him about, because I know there's companies out there, a lot of companies that used to design a 2-story steel house without the same material. We're talking about building the barndominiums, but they did build it out of 2 stories. Okay.
Right.
Well, and now when they design it, it costs you a little more money. But the biggest thing about that is on these barndominiums, you pay 50% up front and you pay the rest on delivery.
Right.
Because they've had a lot of people over the decades shaft them when it comes to steel.
Sure. Okay. So when you're talking about the price point, when you're talking about an efficient home, you're talking more of that traditional like triangle shaped Dutch barn that I guess would be the Dutch gable, English gable barn, whatever you want to call it. In other words, a typical shaped house. But like you're not talking about like the gambrel barn roofs.
No, we tried to have one designed back in the mid-'90s, and a gambrel barn, totally out of steel, and the roof failed.
Okay.
So where a gable don't fail.
Well, and that makes total sense to me. But
now
that
might be a little different.
But that's a little more traditional shape for here in the mountains. I mean, I know we got some gambrel roof barns around. We got some nice big barns, still around. But the majority of the barns in the high country in the mountains would have been that gable roof, right? If you're sticking with that traditional, but I'm thinking too, like, I don't know, my brain's just going back to to the barn styles, and like you could get like a being in North Carolina, here, like you could get that old school tobacco barn, rustic, mountain living looking barn, and then again, big open floor plan, fairly economical.
Yeah.
So, all right. So one thing that I think you sort of mentioned a little bit about the sidings. The world's the limit, right? The sky's the limit when it comes to whatever sidings. But if you're sticking with that barndominium style and you're sticking more with that rustic, I guess I don't know if rustic's the correct word, because it can be pretty elegant. Rustic to me sometimes seems a little crude. But I mean, you can get some nice looking barns. I hate to use the word rustic, but let's just say rustic for the lack of a better term right now. You can keep that rustic look, and go with something. And we were talking off the air, like a lot of barns. When you look at traditional barns, and so if I'm trying to keep my barndominium, I guess in my head it's. Being the traditionalist here, like, to me, a barndominium is gonna mimic more of that mountain farm, right? And so if you're going with that, you could go with a metal roof like we talked about, but you can go with some kind of board and batten siding, which, by the way, would have been traditional when it comes to building a barn in the high country, 150 years ago. But you can do that, and that's actually going to be one of the cheaper sidings, and still keep the good look, and still give as far as any siding goes, it's going to be, maintenance is going to be the same as like a wood siding, because it's board and batten. Yeah,
well, they make metal board and batten. They also make vinyl board and batten.
Yeah.
And I was pricing that house out the other day that's what they wanted, was vinyl board and batten.
What would be the most economical? Now, keeping maintenance, and I don't want to throw maintenance out the window, but what's the most economical? Just wood, because I know you've got a couple ideas with some.
The steel siding would be the cheapest, and the reason for that is there's no maintenance. You just got to pressure wash it every couple of years. No painting at all involved in it.
Right.
Your weed eater's rock's not going to knock a hole through it.
So could you go board and batten style? Could you go like how would this look with a log steel, with a log steel siding, and then board and batten at the top?
Yeah, the options are open.
Because now what we just described is again that old school tobacco barn.
Yeah. Well, you got to remember, our old school tobacco barns, all the number one lumber went into building the inside. All the coal lumber, like the boards and stuff.
Yep.
That's what they put on the outside.
Sure.
Most of this chestnut you see in these old barns, that's what they used that chestnut for, because they couldn't use it for framing. They made sheeting out of it.
Exactly. So. That's cool.
But like I said, the sky's the limit today on stuff, just like metal log siding, There was a house built up Clark's Creek that was built with vertical poplar logs, and they build the houses like that up in Maine, unlike us where they lay them down.
Right. Whoa, that's cool. I just processed how what that would look like in my head. That's pretty cool. I like that. I like that idea. It seems a little bit easier to install too.
You could take your regular conventional log siding and run it vertical instead of horizontal.
That's what I was just thinking in my head when you said that. I was like, wait, or even sticking with those metal panels you're talking about. You'd run those vertical because they come in what, probably the same 12 foot, or depends on whatever you went with, but they'd come the same.
That's the thing about metal on your waist. If you need 12 foot 1 inch, they'll cut it 12 foot 1 inch.
Yeah.
Okay. And some companies won't do that. Some companies want all 12 foot, all 14, all 16.
Mm-hmm.
I won't work with companies like that because that's where you run into the waste.
Sure.
Like, let's say, like a metal roof. I'll sit down and draw that metal roof out, and I know how much waste I got in it.
Right.
Especially if you put a dormer on a metal roof, that's where the waste comes in on them. A straight gable,
sure,
is cheap as, well, not necessarily a straight gable, but even a straight gable or a straight gambrel roof, there's less waste in that because you order every piece to fit what you need.
Right.
Okay?
All right.
What we do on a dormer, is we add, when I draw it out, we'll draw everything the length that we need. And in the valleys, I'll add 1 foot to those pieces. And if I have to have a 3 foot piece, then I put it 4 foot. If I have to have a 2 foot piece, I add a 3 feet. Mm-hmm. So I know that I got enough material that I can cut my angle on and eliminate the least amount of waste that I can have.
Right. Yeah. I love it.
Try to keep from throwing everything away. Well, we recycle metal.
Yep. But I know what you mean. All right, let's take another break, and we'll come right back right after this. Come on. Thanks for listening to us. Thank you so much for being part of the All About Home Construction community. Your support keeps us motivated to bring you the best content, and we're thrilled to have you as a valued listener. We want to thank the winners of our sticker contest: Elizabeth, Diane, Mark, Linda, Scott, Chuck, Deb, William, Katie, and Colin. We hope you guys enjoy the prize, and for everyone out there, don't forget to share the podcast with your families and friends. We'll have more contests soon, so everyone can be a winner. That's right, All About Home Construction here in WATA, and Randy at the Rock and Roll Kitchen over at the VFW. Get over there now for the next couple hours and get a good breakfast over there. A little all you can eat at the Rock and Roll Kitchen, right, Randy? It's good. You got a good crowd coming in. Sounds like I can hear some people in the background, and but you got room for more, right?
That ain't people. That's Dave playing doo-wop.
Well, there you go. So get on over though to the VFW and sell Randy out and make him fry some more bacon for me.
Hey, we appreciate everybody coming.
That's it. So,
we do have that new deck out here.
It's beautiful, by the way. It's steak night. We didn't really talk about the deck, but I finally got to walk out on it on steak night, and it's looking good. Looking good.
Well, Damon Morrison built that for us, and on his spare time. And, we got Chuck put the new retaining wall out there, and so we're trying to improve it. And but think about your veterans.
That's it.
We see the commercials on TV all the time, Tunnels for Towers. But, there are veterans behind the scenes that people don't ever see.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
The only reason we can, I guess they accepted us.
Yep.
Well, being military, Deb's father and my father both was military. Her father was occupational in Germany, and my father was a Korean vet.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, dude, that's really cool stuff. And again, just to go out and support the community, support the veterans. And what I like is a lot of these people are still serving in other ways. And it's a great organization. And then
I'll tell you something that I seen a picture of this last weekend, and which was my dad and his uncle, his mother's brother. Both of them were in Korea together, same time, one in Air Force, one in Army.
Wow. That's cool.
So that was pretty wild.
That's cool. Well, and then we just got the 80th anniversary just yesterday of D-Day, and I mean, it's just such
Bacon's about ready today.
Just that generation, the generations after that. I said 80th, 81st. But it's just that. Oh,
well, I'll tell you one thing.
Like just the people, what they've done.
Ever get a chance to go to France, it'll blow your mind. 9 years ago, I guess I went to Normandy, and let's go back to England. I went to the National History Museum in England, and you could see everywhere that a shell come out of a jet fighter hit the columns and stuff. And they never repaired them. But you could see where buildings, like a bomb went through a building and didn't knock it all the way down. They built it back by cleaning the brick up and filling the hole.
Sure.
And that's pretty wild. France did the same thing. We seen a lot of buildings that the original architect, and then the fill in. And it's just truly amazing.
Right.
And it's humble just to go there and see what they did.
Yep.
I mean, I know it's a bad time in history, but there's a lot of our boys over there, and they, believe it or not, there's actually graveyards for the Germans that died on the battlefield right there at Normandy too.
Right. Yeah. That's so cool. Well,
hard to beat.
Yeah.
Hard to beat the mighty B-17 though.
All right. I love it. Well, finishing things up here on WATA, all about home construction, a little bit about the Barndominiums, and again, thanks to our listeners that asked about that. Hopefully we hit the topics they wanted to hit. I guess one of the things, though, I have a question, and I know you're not a bank financing guy, but do you think you got to worry, I know all's a broad word, but will most lenders, do they look at it as a traditional home in terms of financing, or do you think it's going to be a little more difficult to get a loan for a barndominium?
I don't know why it would be, but I can't answer that because, the financing tightened up.
Right.
2010.
Sure.
And it would be nice if they would release some of the restrictions. But the problem is the big four control all the little banks too.
Right.
And I was listening to a thing the other day about the big banks, they really don't, they're being restrictive on the little banks' growth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. Okay, as far as permitting and stuff, again, it's as far as the permit goes, it's a new structure. It's going to meet code, so permitting wouldn't be any different. Zoning itself, in terms I guess you could run into it with some HOAs not accepting that style, but
I doubt you could build a home like that in HOA because of their restrictions, paint colors,
right? But that was just
and type of roof. This would be something you'd want to build out on your own place.
Sure.
Farm.
But I don't know. I just, and we didn't even talk about the inside, but you could have basically any floor plan you want. Depends on the size of the house. But I'm thinking, like you said before, like if you wanted a small house, if you were looking to downsize but have something nice. 20 by 30, 24 by 30. You're talking 700 square feet. And that's a nice 1 or 2 bedroom, little 1 bath setup. That's better than an apartment.
It'd about be as cheap as these tiny homes.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so you could get. Let's say grading aside. I know I'm here in the mountains. Putting in the foundation, putting in the foundation, the slab. You think you could do the entire house for $90? You said, is that what you had mentioned before?
Not now. That was back in 2000.
Okay.
But with today's prices and everything, we went through what killed steel was the tariffs back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And they drove it out of sight. Okay. And to give you an idea, we've talked about it before. We priced this one house out of steel, and the framing package was $19,000.
Okay.
Coming off the foundation. The wood package was $11,000. Okay. But we figured it'd take 6 weeks to build the house out of steel versus 12 weeks out of wood.
Yeah.
So see, the extra 6, it would have been a wash. Okay.
Right.
But we'd been done earlier with the steel than we would have with the wood, because like that 3,300 square foot house, 21 days we had it dried in.
Yeah. That's cool.
And that was starting in January in the wintertime.
Sure. So you think you could get in a 12 to 1,500 square foot house in what, 150,000?
I don't know. It depends on your lot and your foundation, because you want slab on grade.
I mean, I know that part, but
the point of it is
boy's got a dream, Randy.
Well, I know, but it depends on your floor system, your bathrooms, and all that stuff.
I know.
What I'm getting at is, like when we built Will's house, we built the house. Like I said, we tried to get it lead. Wasn't going for the lead,
right?
But we was trying to get our waste all the way down to a pickup truck. Okay.
Yep.
Well, this bank says, "Yeah, we'll give you a loan." They didn't give us a loan.
Yeah.
All right. Went to the next bank. They said the same thing, and they wouldn't give us a loan. I finally was working on a lady's house, and she was head over to one of the banks here, and I said, "We're having a hard time getting a loan for this house." And she's going, "What? Let me see your contract and your plans and stuff like that." And she said, "I can tell you exactly why you can't get a loan. The banks don't believe you can build it for that."
Gotcha.
And another thing about banks, after the housing crunch, they started setting your draws up like a modular home.
Right.
And modular homes, your money, you get your foundation in. They pay for that. Your second draw would be 19% short.
Right.
Your third draw would be 12% short.
Yeah. And
you get all your money at your last draw.
Yep.
Well, with all these shortages coming in,
it's hard to do that.
The plumber, the electrician, the building supplies were put behind and on their payments. So that makes the contractor look bad.
Yep. That's it. All right, Randy. Well, that finishes up the show. Everybody get on over there to the VFW and get a good breakfast for them. Fill them up this morning, and we appreciate it. Randy, hopefully that answered our listeners' questions, and I like a good barndominium now. I'm sold on the idea.
All right, I'll get with Danny and ask him some questions.
All right, man. Well, Randy, take it easy. Good luck, and sell out of food, all right?
All right. Thank y'all. Don't forget the fish fry the third weekend this month.
All right. Take it easy. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to All About Home Construction on the podcast. We record this live every Saturday on AM 1450 and FM 96.5 WATA in Boone, North Carolina. You can become a supporter by supporting this with a small monthly donation, and that'll help sustain future episodes. You can do that for as little as 99 cents a month, and that'll go a long way to help our show. Do that, you get your name or your company name included in our advertisements. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.